Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Mondays Down South. As you can see, Evan and I are sporting our MLB gear, and all that means is that opening day, at least domestic opening day, starts tomorrow. Got a couple series abroad, but we're ready for all the games to be played. I know Evan is ready to tee up every single game for the day. I know I'm ready for my Mets. I know I'm ready for after a chaotic offseason, some of these new changes. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk to you about our season predictions. That'll include our division winners, our wild card winners, all the way to our championship picks. And we'll give you a couple of our player by player predictions of who we think are going to win awards. It should be a fun one. It might be a long one, but it's going to be teed up for an amazing 2025 season, if I do say so myself. So, with that being said, Evan, do you have any words of wisdom before we break into our picks?
Nah, man, just a spot on intro from you as always, and pumped for opening day, my favorite day of the year. I got a gripe to pick with Rob Manfred though. Like, how do we not have any games starting at 1 o'clock? I mean, everything is either 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, with the exception of three games. That is just an absolute travesty from Manfred from a scheduling standpoint. So kind of a bummer that I'll be locked into the Birds at 3 and I'll be missing all the other games. But Tarek Skubal and Blake Snell at 7 p.m. might make up for it because that's going to be a fun one. But yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit made the playoffs, so I guess I can understand why we got that matchup. But I'm just grateful that we get those two going off against each other because I would have thought it would have been like Dodgers Yankees, Dodgers, I don't know, give me the NLCS, Dodgers Mets, like something like that. But you know what? Shout out to Detroit. I'm happy for them. They get to have a night game for the first time, I'm sure, since the Verlander Scherzer days. So I'm happy for them. With that being said, I think we just jump right into division analysis. Do you want to start, let's say AL, or maybe start with AL Central? Give me your
Sure.
thoughts.
Yeah, I think AL Central is going to be a tricky division. I really like the Royals and I like the Tigers. I've gone back and forth on this one a lot. Obviously, the Guardians I think are going to be decent as well. They always have to shake up the squad a little bit. They traded away Josh Naylor, which I think is going to hurt. But so I'm between the Royals and the Tigers. I'm actually going to lean to the Tigers winning this division. I just think with Tarek Skubal getting Jack Flaherty back, Jackson Jobe in the opening day rotation, that dude is a menace. And Casey Mize had a great spring. He could be someone to watch. I just think, and then you have this whole bullpen nonsense that they do. The pitching staff, I think, is just so deep. Question is, will they get enough offense? Gleyber Torres being the main acquisition, but they have a lot of young players that could step up. So that's going to be the question. But I think with the late season surge they had last year, keeping Jack Flaherty, like I mentioned, and Jackson Jobe, I think can push them over the top to win this division.
Yeah, their rotation is insane. So I have no qualms with that pick, and it's probably the direction I would have gone historically. But the older I get, and the more I watch baseball, and the more I see what modern baseball looks like, starting pitching will only take you so far with the limit of innings that we get nowadays. It's incredibly important. There's no doubt about that. But what I think is more important is consistent hitting from top to bottom in your lineup. I think the Royals do that better than most teams, led by who knows, maybe my MVP. We'll see. It'll come later. But Bobby Witt Jr. and the people and pieces around him. I just expect that offense to be very good this year and to be even better this year than they were last year. And I think that's what's going to like carry them and put them over the Tigers at the end of the day. But I expect that to be a very close race with both of those teams and that like high 80s, low 90s win threshold and really be battling it out till the end. So got to give both of them a shout out. Do you have any honorable mentions of if you think any of these other teams in the division can make some noise? I mean, the Guardians, we're not even talking about them, and they're the ones that that made the most noise last year.
Yeah, the Guardians will be good. They'll be in that mix as well. I think like Gavin Williams, I think could have a breakout year on the rotation side. And they're always going to pitch, and they're always going to put the ball in play with those guys. And obviously, J Ram is one of the best players in baseball. So I think all three of those teams can make some noise. I'm someone that does not like the Twins. I'm a fader of the Twins. I know some people are on them to have a bounce back campaign, but that's not for me. I just think that they have so many stars that are just so injury prone. Royce Lewis is already injured as he always is. So, and I don't like the pitching rotation as much as I did in the past couple of years. So, and then the White Sox are they're going to be atrocious. Although I've been looking the last couple of days, they actually have kind of a fun little like starting rotation brewing. Like Sean Burke, who I'm sure no one has ever heard of. I hadn't really heard of him until he got the opening day nod. Actually, looks kind of nice. So I'm intrigued to see some of these young arms there, but they're going to be absolutely atrocious. So yeah, I think that's how I shake it out. Those three teams I think are really going to be competitive at the top.
Yeah, all I really care about is how long the White Sox are going to wait to trade Luis Robert, and I hope Luis Robert comes to the Mets. I doubt it's happening, but I just love that guy, and I can't wait for him to be somewhere else. But yep, I'm good with that. Let's keep it rolling. Any division you want to jump to next?
Should we go to the West? AL
Let's
West. Go for
do
it.
it.
Start us off.
I get the feeling we're going to be on the same page. I am going to go with the Texas Rangers. I know they're coming in a bit hurt, but that lineup is insane. I expect them to be close to what they were 2 years ago when they won the World Series, lineup wise. I expect their pitching to be great. They're a bit banged up, but I think at some point they'll get fully healthy. They got a couple young guys that can make some noise and Leiter and Kumar Rocker, who are obviously massive names coming into the draft years ago. I don't know they'll be as good as their hype was, but I still think they'll make some noise, whether it's a starters or a rotation. I hope to see Jacob DeGrom actually healthy for the majority of the season. I know that's a stretch. I know we haven't seen it in years, but he looked great coming into the end of the year last year, even in like the two or whatever many starts he made. But I think their depth is insane. I think their hitting is insane. And I think the Rangers overall are one of the most menacing teams in the AL. So this one's an easy one for me. I think Texas Rangers win this division.
Yeah, I was all prepared to pick the Rangers as well, and I still think I'm going to. The lineup is just so deep. I will say that there's a lot of young players I think people are higher on than their results should show for. So Evan Carter, for example, didn't even make the club. Like everyone kind of assumes that he's kind of a stud given his prospect pedigree, but he was horrendous last year. Now he's not even on the roster. With that said, they're just so deep. I think the Jock Peterson addition there is brilliant. They swap
Yeah.
in Jake Berger for Nate Lowe as well. And Wyatt Langford could have like an MVP, on the outside looking in kind of season. The starting rotation makes me a little nervous right now, especially with John Gray and Cody Bradford already injured. Obviously, I feel good about DeGrom and Evaldi at the top two, but I'm not a Jack Leiter guy at all. Like he's got the stuff, but it just does not have the command. And I'm not really a Kumar Rocker believer either. So that puts us in a tricky spot from a rotation standpoint. And we know the bullpen is going to be on the weaker end as well, because it always is with the Rangers. So I think this is me maybe more fading the Astros. Here because I just do not like what they did with the lineup. Moving Altuve to left field made no sense to me because it's not like they had someone logical to fill in. And then you have Cam Smith playing a new position in right field. Really, really cool story of him making the team. Check it out if you haven't already. But he's super young and playing a new position out there. So I think the outfield defense could be atrocious, and I think the lineup's going to take a huge step back. So yeah, I'm debating switching back to them anyway, but I'll stick with the Rangers.
I'm going to jump in. I actually think that if it isn't the Rangers, I'm actually going to go Mariners this year. I know their offense was rough last year, but I'm kind of counteracting what I said prior. But their rotation is nasty from 1 to 5. They never actually traded Castillo, which I thought was going to happen. So I mean, it's probably arguably the best rotation in baseball when you consider the depth of it and the injuries of other rotations. Maybe next to the Dodgers, of course. I don't want to take anything away from them, but I think the Mariners, assuming Julio Rodriguez can get back, I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen, but if he can get back to closer to what he was 2 years ago when he was an MVP candidate, they got some potential to make some noise. They don't have enough, probably as much power or depth in that lineup as I would like to see, but that pitching could really carry them. So that would actually be my pick, which is crazy because the Astros have been arguably the best franchise in baseball for the past decade, if not decade and a half. And I don't know, they might prove us wrong. It wouldn't shock me if their front office finds a way to still win. That's just what they do. But it's hard for me to pick them because their lineup is no longer menacing to me with how old they are. I mean, obviously Jordan's amazing, but there's not a lot of depth to that. And then pitching wise, they're a bit banged up. I mean, they already traded Kyle Tucker. Like I don't know, there's a lot of moving pieces there. So yeah, I think the Mariners would be the biggest competition.
Yeah, the Mariners just infuriate me with their just refusal to add bats, and obviously they're already at a disadvantage with the park they play in, which is really brutal, especially on right-handed hitters. But I just can't with their offense. The pitching is great, but Kirby's already going to miss some time. And I might switch back to the Astros here, actually, the more I talk about it, because I look at the rotation with Framber Valdez, Ronel Blanco, Hunter Brown could have a like underrated kind of Cy Young campaign. Spencer Arrighetti's nice, like Josh Hader at the back end with Brian Abreu, and they have tons of good relievers. Give me
Where's
the
the off?
Astros. Give me the Astros.
I like.
We'll jump to one of the more interesting divisions out there, the AL East. I'll let you kick it off first, but a lot of different teams that could win this one.
Yeah, this one is arguably like along with my own division. This is the hardest one for me, as I'm sure it is for most people. I keep going back and forth. I'm like, here's what I think's gonna happen. I think the Baltimore Orioles are gonna win this division. Okay. And I'm not saying the Baltimore Orioles are necessarily going to be the team that goes the furthest from this division. That's still up in the air for me. But in terms of a team that's coming into this year with their offense already established, having had guys that have basically understood their roles for at least a year or two now, I think they are going to come in and be one of the best, if not the best, offense in baseball. I have no doubt about that. I know your bullpen's a bit banged up, but you guys seem to find a good way to keep that, together. Your pitching does not scare me in the slightest, but at the same time, you guys are very creative with how you use your starters, and your pitching coaches are very good. And you guys have always just done a good job of winning games, especially in the regular season. So I expect you guys to get close to that 100 win threshold and probably win the division, especially with the injuries the Yankees have and everything else. Now the Boston Red Sox are the team that give me the most pause in picking the Orioles because their lineup looks insane, their pitching looks insane. But one thing I've learned with baseball is you don't just add a bunch of guys and then be amazing day one. It takes a little bit of time to get to your peak. And I expect in the second half, the Red Sox to arguably the best team to be the best team in baseball. I think they'll give you guys a run for your money, but I think by that point, you guys have built enough of a gap to win the division, and then we'll kind of see from there. So I'm going to say Orioles over Red Sox in a close race. I got Yankees 3. There's too many injuries there for me to fully trust that team, and I think their offense is going to rely very heavily on veteran guys and really young guys. So guys past their prime or guys who aren't in their prime yet to kind of keep them afloat. And I think Aaron Judge, he can't possibly have the numbers he had last year without Juan Soto batting in front of him. At least I would think so. If he does, then I might be wrong. But that's what I'm going to go with. The other two teams, I think they'll make some noise, but I don't really expect much out of them compared to the ones I've listed. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. Obviously, I'm biased here, but I'm going to stick with the Orioles. I think their floor is just really high. I think my maybe semi bold, probably not that bold prediction is that they will score the most runs in baseball this year. I think the lineup is just so deep. There's 30 homer potential, basically like 1 through 7 or 8. I think Jackson Holiday is going to have a really, really strong bounce back campaign. Losing Santander hurts, but I think Tyler O'Neill is a great fit. Also, they moved the fences in at Camden Yards this year, so if they finished top 5 in runs last year, that's going to go up just by the nature of the fences moving in. So, the pitching I think will be like a top 15, top 12 staff. It's just so deep. Like you have, I think I have a list over here. Like I think 8 guys that'll pitch around a 4 ERA. Like when healthy this year, which not many teams can say. I mean that's just ridiculous depth once you've added Kyle Gibson. Already tons of like minor injuries. When we're talking about regular season, I think this team just has the floor to be able to win 90 plus 95, even push 100 games just with the floor starting pitching and arguably best offense in the league. The bullpen has me incredibly nervous right now because Felix Bautista off the Tommy John surgery, obviously that it usually takes that extra year to fully come back. Andrew Kittredge out for a long time, the bullpen, and there's already a lot of guys in there that, have really good stuff, but have never been very trustworthy with Gregory Soto and Sir Anthony Dominguez. So the bullpen is the piece that I think could implode and like cause this team to miss the playoffs. But I think the floor is, like I said, it's pretty high and could be enough to give them the division. Boston is nasty though. I think your analysis on Boston was spot on. I think it might take a little bit of time to come together, but Christian Campbell on the opening day roster, Bregman's in, Devers full-time DH, Garrett Crochet. I mean, there's a lot to like there. And Yankees completely agree. Just 2 beat up. Cody Bellinger looks great, but I think they need a lot to go right offensively for it to work. And then the Blue Jays be a little better, I think, this year. Bo Bichette bounce back campaign. A lot of young players I like. Pitching was a disappointment, but should be better this year. Jeff Hoffman for the back end of the bullpen, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And then the Rays could be okay as well, but I don't think they have enough for a playoff spot or a division title.
Yeah, I think that's about exactly what I would have said about the Yankees too. So I'm glad you hit the nail on the head with that one. Let's jump to the NL. I think this will make for a fun. We'll loop back to our playoffs and such once we've picked all our divisions. Let's go with. I'm going to save mine for last. Let's go with the NL Central. Kind of keep the same order a bit.
All right, NL Central. I'm gonna go with kind of a sneaky hot team people are liking right now. The Cincinnati Reds. I think Terry Francona is the perfect man to bring into this young nucleus that can get the most out of this team and take them over the top. I think L.A. De La Cruz has a massive. You can't really call it a breakout. He already broke out, but just a massive campaign. I like some of the fringe additions they made. Gavin Lux, Austin Hayes. Unfortunately, Austin Hayes is now going to be on the IL to start the year, but he was looking great in camp. Matt McClain, I think having him back is huge. Losing him at the beginning of the last year, I think, was just a killer for them. They have a lot of nice young starters. Hunter Green is kind of going to be in that Cy Young mix. So, yeah, give me the Reds. I guess breaking down the rest of the division. I think the Cubs are so overrated. I know people were kind of buying them. It's just not for me. Like adding Kyle Tucker is obviously huge, but they just don't have nearly enough across the board. The Brewers are going to be good because the Brewers are always good. They just find a way, no matter who they trade away, to be good. But I think the Reds have enough to get them, and the Pirates are, they're obviously going to pitch, but they're not going to hit. So I don't think it's going to be enough, despite Paul Skeens going just ludicrous this year.
Yeah, it's funny. You could argue this is one of the most fun divisions because of how much like young talent is on these rosters, and like you just mentioned, guys like Paul Skeens, and then when you go to the Brewers, you could talk about guys like Churio. Like we're talking about absolute young studs who have the whole future ahead of them. With that being said, this is also probably the weakest division in my opinion in baseball at the moment. Just in terms of like teams that I just don't think are necessarily going to make a lot of noise. Like one of them has to make the playoffs, but I don't expect much out of this division this year, especially because the Brewers, I would say, were the best team in that division last year, and then they happened to lose some of their best players like Devin Williams and others that they've moved on from. And then the other thing is, I love the Reds pick. I love it. I just think it's a year too early. I think it's going to take them one more year. I think the rotation needs to get a bit better, even with guys like Hunter Green and Brady Singer was a nice acquisition for them with the India trade. So maybe that'll give them a little there. I love that pick for the sake of fun. I'm just torn. Like, how much do I believe in the Cubs? How much do I believe in the Brewers? You know what, Evan? I'm jumping on the Cincinnati bandwagon. Let's go with the young team, baby. Let's go. I'm going to go Cincinnati to win this division. I don't know. I mean, I think the Brewers and the Cubs are probably the more rational pick, but at the same time, like neither of those teams scare me or make me feel like they're going to be that amazing. So if I'm going more with like potential and high upside, I think it's got to be the Reds. So I'm with there. Cincinnati all the way.
I love it. Great choice. Should we jump to the West?
Mhm.
Jump to the West. See if anyone has chalk that's not the Dodgers. What do you got?
I don't know, Ev. What about those D backs, though, baby? Come on. Adding Corbin Burns at right next to Zach Gallen. We got a nice lineup. You expect Corbin Carroll to get back to his rookie ways? We'll get to see some noise from the D backs, but yeah, I'm not picking against the Dodgers. No one's picking against the Dodgers. Let's be real here. The Dodgers are, I'll take a minute to say this. This is probably the best roster from a team I've ever seen in my entire life. Um, I don't know how it gets better than this. You could argue they have the best starting rotation in baseball. You could argue they have the best lineup in baseball, and you could argue they have the best bullpen in baseball. I don't, and you could argue they have some of the best management and the best front office in baseball. I don't see a singular weakness, and they have depth at almost every spot, every position. They got guys in the minors that would be like number three starters or would be starting hitting options on their team. So when I look at all of that, it's so impossible to not think. I think they're going to be pretty close to setting the record for most games ever won. I know that's chalk. I know that's boring to say. I know a lot of people think that, but I just don't see how it doesn't happen. Even if they get a couple of major injuries, they'll still be better than most teams out there. So I'm not rooting for that. Obviously, I want to. It'll be fun to see how this plays out. But yeah, picking the world champs to win their division.
Yeah, just that team is just too loaded. There's not much else you can say. And the way each of those guys, they just take such great at bats offensively. Even if you look at the lineup and say, man, I don't know, it maybe isn't as strong as I thought. It's just all those guys down at the bottom of the lineup are going to work counts and put the ball in play. And starting rotation insane, bullpen ridiculous. Yeah, I think the battle for second and third is going to be interesting. I do like the Diamondbacks to potentially overtake the Padres this year. You mentioned Corbin Burns. Getting Josh Naylor in there is an interesting replacement for Christian Walker. They still got Marte, Gurriel. So I think they're going to be good. And I think the Padres maybe take a small step back. I think they'll still be good, but the starting pitching behind Michael King and Dylan Cease leaves a little bit of room to be desired. And I'm not a buyer of the Giants. They do have a nice looking starting rotation to start the year with Verlander in there. Robbie Ray looks great right now. Logan Webb, we know, is obviously a stud. And Jordan Hicks had a nice year transitioning to the starter role last year. So, but I'm not buying it with the Giants. And then, of course, the Rockies will be terrible. But, yep, certainly going chalk with the Dodgers.
Yeah, the Giants. It's my issue with the Giants is their lineup. I don't know where the runs are coming from. That's a big concern for me. They're a bit old. Who knows? Maybe it might take a couple of years, but I expect them to be better in future years. Just not now, not compared to the division. What do you got for the
And
East,
also,
Ev?
yeah, obviously another tough one similar to the AL East. I think you got three teams at the top that are all going to be very, very good competing for it. I'm going to stick with the chalk team that won last year. I am going to go with the Phillies. I just think their starting rotation is not talked about as how ridiculous it is. Obviously, Zach Wheeler still getting older, but still is absolutely dominating and in peak form. Christopher Sanchez, I might talk about him a little later. Probably the most underrated pitcher in baseball. He threw around 180 innings at was it like a 2.9 or a 3 ERA, and no one seems to talk about it. Aaron Nola is going to be solid. And Andrew Painter, big time prospect that got Tommy John, is going to be back ready this year. And they added Jesus Luzardo, who, if he's healthy, he's a stud. So bullpen makes me nervous. The offense is gonna hit. Might not be elite, but it's going to be top 10 for sure. Closer to top 5. So I just think the team is too balanced as a whole, too good. If they can get enough from the bullpen, as long as it's not bad, I think they can have enough to get it done against the Mets, who are facing tons of injuries in the rotation right now. And I think the offense will carry them, but I think we'll see some weakness on the pitching front early on. And then the Braves will be great as well. But I don't know. I just think they're losing a little bit of steam, specifically in the starting rotation, although with Sale there. They could easily win the division as well. So I can see either of these three teams to winning the division. But yeah, Phillies chalk.
I think that's a fair pick, especially given how hurt we are to start the year. I think that makes it a bit more difficult. We're going to have to do a lot of winning through offense, as you mentioned. My question is, how do you have that order? You have Phillies 1, who's 2 and 3?
Go Braves 2, Mets 3, but I don't want to jump ahead with who's making the playoffs, but
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that later. I think I'm gonna go with the homer pick, and obviously there's a lot of bias in this. I know we're a little bit hurt, but my thing is I'm a big believer in momentum. The way we closed out last year in the second half, we were the best team in baseball record wise, and I think like all we've done is gotten better. I know we have injuries in the pitching front, but when you really compare it to last year, like is our rotation that much worse, even hurt compared to how we made it work last year? Kodai Senga got hurt in spring training last year. We didn't get him back till the end of the year, and we relied on Sean Manaea, Luis Severino to pick up the slack. Luis Severino is gone. Sean Manaea is hurt, but he should be back within the first month. Kodai Senga is back, who is better than when he's healthy than anyone we had last year. And Manaea in the second half was even better than most people were the entire year. He was way better as the season progressed than he was earlier, and he found something new with his pitching. Clay Holmes looks amazing with the new additions. I'm not saying we shouldn't be relying on Clay Holmes to be one of our top 2 guys this year, or we're not going to win. But I expect him to be a really good 4 or 5 for us as the season progresses. I love David Peterson. I don't think he gets enough credit. As much as our rotation is banged up, the one issue I'm having, but this isn't you, this is more the media talking about, oh man, like the Mets pitching is brutal. I'm like, guys, I think you guys are forgetting what our pitching looked like last year when we made a run to the NLCS. So I expect with our pitching to hold up well enough, and then get hot at the right time. We're having injuries at the time that you never want to have injuries, but if you're going to have them, I guess spring training would be the time to have them. The big blow I actually think is Francisco Alvarez, which is, obviously he's a great guy for the pitching and everything, and I think he adds a lot of potential hype to the bottom of the lineup. But even putting that all aside, I still think we have one of the best lineups in baseball. And then the sneaky good thing about our team is our bullpen. I think our bullpen is going to be astronomically better than it was last year. And I don't think people are realizing that, especially because Diaz actually came in with like a full year of like actually pitching and coming back in regularly. We added guys like Minter, who should be back soon. Max Kranick all of a sudden looks insane. You even got guys like Griff Canning and Tyler McGill that down the road we might need to like pull into the bullpen. We have a lot of depth there of guys that could really produce, and we got a couple guys that could come up like Brandon Sproat and other players that could add a ton of value to our team as the season progresses. I love our team, and I think we're going to win. I actually think that I'm more afraid of the Braves than I am the Phillies, and here's why: the Phillies' offense is amazing at the top four, and then after that, they just don't scare me at all. Like I just think it's what happened last year in the playoffs where we can get past those first couple of guys. They just don't scare me. And their starting pitching can keep them afloat for those first 5 to 6 innings, the way modern baseball does. But their bullpen is awful. And when I think about the course of a season, especially if they have any injuries at all, I just don't think they have the depth to sustain it. I believe in the Mets and Braves' ability, even with injuries, to sustain depth far more, and that's why I'm just not as big on the Phillies. But I also realize their upside, and I do think Zach Wheeler is the best pitcher in baseball until further notice because of what he does in the playoffs. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to pick my Mets though.
Respect. We made it through all the divisions pretty quickly. So what should we do next? I guess wild cards next.
I think we do wild cards. Yeah.
All right, AL wild card. Who you got?
Okay. This is where it gets a bit tricky. So I picked the Orioles to win your division. So I'm definitely going to put Boston in. That's a no doubter for me. I picked Kansas City to win their division, so I'm putting the Detroit Tigers in. And then it gets tricky. I don't. It's hard for me to leave the Yankees out, but I'm also like they're so hurt. You know what? I don't want to leave the Guardians out too because they always find a way to make the playoffs and win games. So this is really my toss up: the Cleveland Guardians or the New York Yankees. I don't know when the Yankees are going to be. Oh my gosh, I'll go Yankees. I don't like that I'm picking this, but I'll go Yankees as the last team in the AL.
Yeah, I'm definitely putting the Red Sox in. I'm definitely putting the Royals in. I have the same conundrum as you. Um, I'll put the Rangers in. I faded them for the division, but I will put them in the playoffs. Fading the Guardians and Yankees is tough, but someone's got to be left out. So, give me Rangers, Red Sox, Royals.
I feel gross leaving Houston out. I feel like they should be in my playoffs. Oh my gosh! You know what? I'm kicking the Yankees out. I'm picking the Houston over the Yankees. Let's do it.
Nice.
I'm in. Yeah,
So do we have the same? We have all the same teams?
I think we do. Yeah,
That's rough.
that's a bummer.
All right, NL. I teased it. Give me Braves and Mets, so 3 NL East teams, and give me Arizona. So I feel a little bit better about the NL 6. I feel like it's
Yeah.
a little tighter for me. That I obviously the Central is kind of a dart throw, but I feel good about that group.
To anyone who's still listening, I promise we didn't talk about this before, but we're about to have the same teams in the NL as well because I have the Braves, Phillies, and
Jeez.
D-back. And I had the Mets win the division. I'm at least glad we didn't pick all the same division winners. This never happens too. You're usually usually one of us is more chalk, but yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Any like real deep sleeper teams you think have a real long shot of making it?
Oh, that's a good question. You go first. I had a couple in mind, but I'm gonna think about this a bit.
I don't necessarily have one. I think it's tough to pick out of the teams. The pick against the teams we mentioned. I will. How about I show some love to the Sacramento Athletics, though. I think this team is going to be vastly improved. They signed Luis Severino and they trade for Jeffrey Springs. They have some nice young pitchers in the rotation that I think could be okay. The back end of the bullpen is locked down with Mason Miller. And the offense is sneaky, sneaky good. Lawrence Butler is a star. JJ Bleday is super underrated. Brent Rooker, we know, is going to be a 40 home run candidate. Jacob Wilson, we're going to talk about Rookie of the Year later. I love that kid starting shortstop for them out of the gates. I think they have a lot of nice young players: Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers. So I'm not going to say they're going to compete for the playoffs, but I think they're going to be way better than people think. So let me show some love to the. I don't know if they're calling themselves the Sacramento A's. Actually, I think they're just calling themselves the Athletics or whatever. So whatever they're calling themselves, I think they're going to be improved this year.
It's interesting. I my team would have been the team that I didn't initially think I was going to pick as a division champion, but then I proceeded to do so and I picked the Reds. Um, I was going to say the Reds because of the fact that I thought that they would, with their youth and their upside, like I was like maybe they can make some noise and sneak in and then just like be a menacing kind of team for someone to play in the playoffs, especially if they catch them while they're hot. So that was kind of where my mind was at. If I'm thinking of anybody else, honestly, it's hard for me to think of anyone else that I really think could make a run though, because in order to beat some of these other top heavy teams, you need like true upside, right? You need like a guy like Ellie who could easily be an MVP. You need a Hunter Green who could be a Cy Young. I think it's the Reds, man. I know I picked them to win the division, but I still think that even within that, like they can make some noise if they make the playoffs. So I'm gonna go with Reds. Yeah.
Yep. Love it.
Really don't have any other deep cuts. I will say one thing though. I think they're going to get beat up on a lot this year because of the division they're in. But the Nationals are going to be a fun team to watch this year. Even as a Mets fan, I have to say that. I think they're headed in the right direction. And I think in a few years, you're going to see, I mean, all bias included, you're going to see my Mets holding down the fort for a long time because of our current ownership and our current management and everything of that nature. And I think the Nationals are going to slowly start inching into that, taking over that Phillies Brave situation as they get older. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree about the Nats. They completely punted bullpen, which I think is smart when you're not like really in a compete window. But yeah, they're going to be improved as well. So, all right, should we do awards first and save World
I like
Series
that.
picks for the end if we have any?
Yeah.
What about Rookie of the Year? Do you have any Rookie of the Year selections for each league on your
I
mind?
I'm gonna, I'm gonna let you go first. You know what? I'll start with this. I think I'll give one, you give your two, and then I'll come back to mine. Um, I'm gonna go with this is gonna be a crazy pick given the fact that I don't even know when he's gonna come up. I want to say Job in the AL because obviously he is filthy and he's gonna be pitching hopefully all year. But I'm gonna say Roman Anthony, even if he comes in a month or two in, I think he's going to make so much noise, and I think the team is going to be trending so hot at that time that he's going to be able to get crazy numbers in the time that he's up. And I think he's just going to close that gap. I know that's crazy because Christian Campbell is right there next to him, and he's starting the year with the Red Sox, so he has a major leg up. But I believe that Rookie of the Year you can still win if you end up being that truly brilliant, and I think he has the ability to be. So I'm going to pick Roman Anthony in the AL.
Nice. I am gonna go with Job. I think Job is so disgusting. The fact that he's on the roster from jump, he got a little experience last year. My sleepers, I mentioned Jacob Wilson. I think he's a sleeper. He had 4 home runs in spring training. He's supposed to be like a Luis Arraez level profile, just like such a good contact hitter. He's gonna bat 300. He could be a batting champion one day, but he's run into some power in camp, which is really interesting. If he can hit 20 homers and bat 300 and play elite defense at short, he's a little unknown there out in Sacramento. But that's my sneaker. And for the Orioles, Tomoyuki Sugano, it's kind of a
About to
cheat
say that.
code because he's
Yeah.
like 34, but he looks great in camp, and obviously he's has way more experience than all the guys we're talking about. So that is a sleeper for betting markets. Nat,
I
Nat,
was Sorry, I was just gonna say Sagano you could very easily, not easily, but could definitely win it. I think we need to change the rules for Rookie of the Year, though. You can't have a guy coming in his late 30s and be a rookie. But anyway, continue.
that's a tough scene. Um, And now I kind of had to look some names up for this one. I'm seeing Dylan Cruz is still eligible, which is a surprise to me with how many at bats and such he got last year. So I'm going to
Yeah,
say if Dylan Cruz is eligible for the Rookie of the Year, MLB says he is. I'm not sure if that's
weird.
correct. I find it a little bit hard to believe, but I will definitely go Dylan Cruz. And if not, then I don't know. You got anyone in mind?
I mean,
I guess
I,
there's an
I
obvious one.
I tend to agree with you that if Dylan Cruz is available, that I think he will win. Um, but I mean, obviously, Roki's the obvious one that I think a lot of people are picking. But I'm not going to go with Roki just because that rotation and team is so nasty. I think like maybe he'll get lost in the sauce a little bit. I don't know. The ones that stand out to me are Shaw and actually, you know what? I'm not fond with this. I'm gonna pick Bubba Chandler to win Rookie of the Year if it's not Dylan Cruz. That's what I'm going with because he's gonna come in, be that number 3 guy on a already nasty Pirates rotation, and he could be like making noise as that number 2. I'm gonna pick Bubba Chandler.
That's what I was gonna say. If he gets enough innings, then that would be my pick. But if it's yeah, if Cruz is eligible, I'm definitely picking Cruz. I think he's gonna have a huge year. Um, Cy Young. Who you got for Cy Young?
Damn, bro. I'm like, this is so difficult. I don't want to go chalk, man. You go first for this one.
Um, NL, I'm going to give you a crazy one. NL, I'm going to go Christopher Sanchez. More so, I guess I highlighted him earlier, but I think he is going to be, maybe it's a lot to say he's going to win it, but I think he's going to be in that conversation this year, and I just do not think he's talked about enough.
Okay.
AL, give me Garrett Crochet. A little bit healthier for a full season. You're not going to have that innings nonsense. He's on a better team, so he's going to win more. So I'll take Crochet.
Okay. If he pitches the full season, Jacob DeGrom will win another Cy Young. That is, I will take that to the bank if he pitches another full season. He's not going, but I'm not saying he's not going to, but I think it's likely that he won't pitch enough innings to compete for it. And for that reason, I'm taking a back-to-back Cy Young winner, Tarek Skubal. He's just too good, and I don't see a world in which there's other guys that can pass him, like you said, Garrett Crochet and others. But Tariq is so consistent, and he's also capable of actually having depth in his starts while still being dominant. And I think that is something that a lot of other guys just aren't as good at. And he's so young and so good. I think he'll repeat, actually. Just assuming Jacob isn't able to pitch to allotment that you need to win a Cy Young. In the NL, this is an obvious pick. I don't care. Paul Skeens, I, I was my jaw still dropped from the other day when you mentioned he had a 1.9 ERA as a rookie. Like in my mind, I processed it as like, oh yeah, he had a 2.5, which is absolutely dominant for a rookie. A 1.9 is almost Jacob DeGrom in his prime. Not quite that level where you literally could not touch one of his pitches, but I think Skeens has the ability to be Jacob DeGrom in his prime. And I think you'll see it this year. I think Paul Skeens is one of the if he stays healthy, I actually don't even think Daniel Sion is going to be close. And that's crazy because there's some amazing pitchers in the NL, but Skeens is just on a level that it's like I haven't seen that out of a guy coming out, year one. It took DeGrom 5 years to get to that. Paul Skeens is insane, man.
Yep, logical pick. Most valuable player. You got yours queued up. I have a feeling the American League we might copy each other, but
Okay, well, I'll start with American League, and you tell me if you have something different. Go Bobby Witt Jr. It's the reason I picked the Royals to win their division. I just think he's by far and away going to be the just fill up the stat sheet while also playing exceptional defense. I think it's gonna be hard to beat him in the AL. Like he's just got too much going for him. Like I can't think of I don't know. This guy's like Mookie in his prime playing shortstop, an exceptional shortstop. I don't know. That's hard to beat, and he's faster than Mookie. It's wild.
yeah, I just think with Judge losing Soto, that was such a key from a lineup perspective for him. So I think that maybe will give Witt the edge this year, but partially for fun. But and then Gunner's gonna. I mean, it's only gonna be a couple weeks, but a couple weeks could be the difference from a stat standpoint. So those are the three logical candidates, and then J Ram will obviously finish top three like he does every year. So just National League.
I'm gonna. You go. You go.
I am going another maybe slightly off chalk, but Ellie De La Cruz for National League MVP. I think the steals could be like 60, just something ridiculous. And again, I like the Reds a lot this year, so I think a huge, just monster campaign for Ellie, and he wins the MVP.
Okay. I'm going to take a look at one thing. I already know my MVP, but I just want to check one thing really quickly as we go. But while I try to figure that out, I love that both of us are clearly not picking the player who's actually going to win it, assuming he
Yeah,
stays healthy.
I mean,
Because
obviously.
at this point, we all know Shohei Ohtani is going to win the MVP if he stays healthy, especially given the fact that he's going to pitch. But it's just not fair. He should have his own award for being in a class of his own and then give the NL another option for MVP, because I'm tired of the guy that I'm gonna pick finishing second in multiple years. But I'm picking Juan Soto, baby. Like, welcome to the Mets. Welcome to your $800 million contract. Welcome to batting behind Francisco Lindor and before Pete Alonso. That stack of guys he has around him, especially with him protecting Pete, they can't just walk him every time, even though he's going to get his walks. That's what he does. I think Juan Soto, especially in Citi Field as a lefty, I don't think people understand being a lefty in Citi Field is a beautiful thing. Juan Soto is going to be an absolute menace this year. And assuming Shohei doesn't win, which he will, but assuming he doesn't, Juan Soto has to win an MVP at some point, man. Like, the guy, it feels like the guy's been in the league for 10 years and he's only 25, and he's arguably been the best hitter in baseball in that span, and somehow has still never won MVP. It's high time that he does. And here's my hot take: if not Shohei and if not Juan Soto, I think Francisco Lindor is going to finish third because he just finished second last year, and I think he's going to be, for once, he finished second in the NL last year, in a year where he started off the season ice cold up until like May, and then went berserk. With Juan Soto hitting behind him, there's a world where he finishes higher than Soto in MVP because of the protection he has behind him. So those are my three, man. And I know that's biased. I don't care. I think Ellie is a great pick though, as someone who has the upside to actually supplant or Otani. But it's really the only way anyone beats out Otani is if he doesn't pitch more than like 2 months. That's the only way someone beats him.
Well, and even then, he probably wins it on his hitting alone, to be honest.
He could. He did last year, but I don't think. But if he's only a hitter this year, I really do think someone could beat him out.
Nah,
We'll see.
we'll see.
But I'm not
But
likely. I'm just saying it's possible.
yeah, he's gonna win. But that's all right. We had some fun with it. All right. What do we got? Championship series and then World Series champion is last to go. I gotta think about this, man. This is tough this year. I think well, other than the Dodgers, there's a lot of different ways you could go. But
isn't that something in the NL?
NL, I am going to take the Dodgers in the championship series against the. I'll go Phillies.
I like it.
I think it's a little post hype for the Phillies. I think this core group of players is going to win a World Series at some point. So maybe I'll just keep picking them until they do. But Dodgers Phillies in my NLCS.
Okay, I don't think this core group is going to win in their career anymore because they still haven't. Maybe they get a shot because the rotation is better this year than it was in prior years. But my Mets own them, and we were a worse team last year than we were this year, and
you played them once, Sai.
We own them
in one series.
It doesn't matter. You want to know why we own them? It's because of the reasons I just stated. Their bullpen was not scary at all, man. Like, the first 5 innings, they were daunting. Zach Wheeler obviously is the best pitcher in that series. But my thing with the Phillies is especially when you come into the playoffs, if you don't have depth, you're not a scary team to me. That's what makes the Dodgers by far and away the best team in the NL. And it's why I'm biased. It doesn't matter. I'm picking a rematch of last year. Dodgers Mets, Juan Soto versus Shohei. It'll be epic. It'll be grand. And did you say who your winner was, or are you going to save that?
Not yet. I saved it.
I'm going to save it.
All right. American League.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, I don't have it yet.
I got Boston versus Baltimore.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I'm struggling, like trying to be unbiased. I'm struggling because on paper, the Orioles look like they have the last couple of years as a team that's going to be good in the regular season, not as much in the playoffs. But part of me thinks that the fact that I'm thinking that now makes me think they're going to outperform my expectations. And getting Kyle Bradish is if he is healthy, that is kind of your horse, and obviously still have the prospects to make trades at the deadline. Cade Povich, another sneaky rookie of the year name, but looks like he could even develop into a more of a top of the rotation starter. So I am going to put the Red Sox there. I don't like a lot of the other teams. Like
that's what I was going to say. The AL is not that good, especially compared to the NL.
It's deep. I think it's deeper, but
it's deeper. But I'm saying, like, in terms of like top teams, like I mean, post Boston, Baltimore, like, yeah, the Royals can make some noise. Yeah, Tigers can make some noise. We picked a couple other teams, but like maybe the Rangers are the one that I'm leaving out that I think could actually do it if they get healthy. That team is menacing, but I just don't want to rely on a team that's been either hurt or inconsistent when I could pick two teams that have, great upside already, but are also consistent.
Yeah, I think the Rangers, if they could beef up the bullpen at the deadline, obviously looking at bullpens now isn't always the most valuable exercise because that's the kind of the biggest way to add late in the season. So yeah, I guess we'll copy each other. I'll go Red Sox, Orioles. Trying to be unbiased, I'll pick my winners now. I think the Red Sox are going to make the World Series this year. I think once you get all these pieces in together, I think Bregman's a huge culture fit. I mean, Christian Campbell's already on the roster. Roman Anthony, I picked Crochet for the Cy Young. I think Walker Buehler is going to have a great year. They're a little banged up early, but Giolito will come back. Tanner Houck. The bullpen, we'll see, but certainly have the potential to add there as well with all their prospects because they have more beyond those top three. So I'll say the Red Sox actually make the World Series, and I'll say the Dodgers.
For a second, I was like, "There's no damn way you're picking the Phillies over the Dodgers." I was about to lose it. No way. I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you did, but yeah. This is so boring. But anyway, I am Dodgers Mets. I expect this to be the year that we make a massive midseason acquisition. We've been sitting on our hands for years now. Trying to be smart about how we build depth and build prospects and stuff under Stearns. But I expect that at the trade deadline, assuming someone important or big comes available, whether that's Wagner or Junior to make our offense the best offense in baseball if we get him, or a pitcher. I don't know, maybe a Cease, maybe someone actually comes available. I expect us to make that move, and I expect us to be right there with the Dodgers, and I expect us to lose to the Dodgers in 6 or 7 because the Dodgers are unbelievably good. So I think the Dodgers are going to the World Series, and I wish I could pick your Orioles, but I can't take your starting pitching over the depth of everything Boston has to offer. So I got to take Boston, man. This is a bummer. We picked the same World Series. I know, man. It's sad, but I can't not do it.
Maybe I'll switch
Got
to the Phillies. I was on the fence, but I've got.
What's because I picked the Dodgers? Have some conviction, man.
We can't just pick the same thing everywhere.
We don't normally. This is a weird year.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a surprise, but so do you have the Dodgers beating the Red Sox then, I presume?
This is actually the one I struggle with the most. I do think the Dodgers are the better overall team, but I think the team that is like can give them the most amount of problems would be the Red Sox, given that their lineup could be one of the best lineups we've seen by the time they reach a World Series. With the guys they've added, with the guys like Devers who are MVP caliber players, with Roman Anthony who could be with Christian Campbell, who could be with just depth everywhere, even DH they can platoon. Like I think their lineup can be menacing, but when it comes down to it, I just can't pick against the Dodgers this year, man. I really believe we're going to see the greatest team in the history of baseball this year. I think we're going to see a team that wins close to 110 games, and I think we're going to see a team that honestly runs through the playoffs. I think they'll get a nice series in NLCS. I think they'll get a nice series in the World Series, but I still think they'll win convincingly. So I'm taking the Dodgers to win it all.
Yeah, tough to pick against the Dodgers. That's a safe choice if you want to be right. So I will get on us for being chalky this episode, or not chalky, but in alignment, I would say this episode. But I don't think there's anything wrong with us both picking the Dodgers. So that would be the one area I won't pick on us for picking the same team. A fun season ahead, a long slog to October. Hopefully we're both there at the end, but for those that still tuned in, thank you for watching as always. Stay tuned for more baseball content as we promised this year. Enjoy opening day, and that was Mondays Down South.